Welcome, we're joined by James Adomian, a comedian and actor from Los Angeles. James, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
So you came to Armenia in these troubled times. Can you explain why you came and what you've been doing here?
Well, first of all, it's an honor to be here at ＳիվիլՆեթ. This is one of the best news sources around the world, having watched a lot of what's happened in the last months from California. You have an impact that's very much appreciated in the Armenian community and beyond. I came here to Armenia because I gathered that I needed to find out what was needed, what was happening, and we're getting some information, not really from the Western media. We have to seek it out from the Armenian media, and in some instances, you know, the European press and so forth, international news. But I wanted to see for myself, and I wanted to ask people what was needed in the short term and also in the long term for the health and prosperity of the country, and how I want to find out how the diaspora can better help the Armenian people here in Armenia.
And you're going to return soon to America. What did you think about Armenia? What did you think while you were here?
Fascinating place. I love that I can see statues of great Armenian artists and heroes. Yerevan is fascinating. My friend Sona has been pointing out that the streets are named after poets and musicians and great artists, which is a fascinating thing about Yerevan. It's a beautiful city. Obviously, I came here at a sad time, and I have been deeply moved and impressed by the resilience of the people of Yerevan, and I've seen firsthand some of the refugees from Artsakh and met them and talked to them, and so I was worried that I was coming at the wrong time, but hopefully it was a time that I was able to meet some people I was supposed to meet. And also, I've always grown up loving the Armenian sense of humor, even in dark times. And I've been lucky that people have been able to share a smile with me.
Can you also explain a bit about your own Armenian background?
Yeah. I know I don't look Armenian. I like to joke that I'm Otaratsi High. I'm both. I'm Otar and I'm also Kich High. But my grandfather was Armenian. My heritage is from Van, Vanatsi, and so our part of Armenia is not there in some ways now, and so I can't go back to my ancestral hometown, but Yerevan is what's largely left. Armenia, Hayastan is what's left of what was Armenia. And the people live on, and there's a lot of us, Otaratsi High in California, a lot of friends of mine, and so I grew up with an Armenian family in Los Angeles and also non-Armenian, and so I have a mixed background, and Armenian issues and the prosperity of Armenia has always been very important to me, and I felt during this last war that not enough was being done, and rather than moan and criticize or point fingers, I decided I would just come here and find out. I'm a little bit Armenian, and even the part of me that's not Armenian, all of me is a friend of Armenia, and so there's a lot of people like me, and I wanted to find out. I wanted to raise awareness because there are people in the U.S. that will listen to me, and so maybe they'll see that I'm here and understand that it's not a scary place that's on another planet. It's on our planet Earth, and you can get here on airplanes, and the society is not falling apart. It's very much healthy. If it certainly sad in some ways, but very healthy and very resilient, and very strong. And I've been moved to tears many times being here in just a short amount of time.
Well, that's fascinating as well that you do that, especially with the platform you have. And I wanted to ask, while you were in the US, what did you think about the media coverage of the 2020 Karabakh War? And not just American media coverage, but international media coverage.
It was abysmal. Aside from watching you here on CivilNet, watching Eric Hagopian, watching Zartank Media on Instagram, and Yerevan Report, EVN Report, some Armenian news sources, and obviously there's some great organizations in the US like ANCA and Armenia Assembly, and I follow what they say, as much as I can. But as far as the Western news media, it was abysmal, to the point that there were protests, and I went to some of the protests in Los Angeles at CNN just to get them to even cover what was happening. They acted like it wasn't even happening at all. And yes, there was a huge clown circus, like a circus on fire with the US election. But I was trying to tell people that Turkey and Azerbaijan were aware of that, and there's part of the reason why they attacked at the time that they did.
Pandemic as well.
The pandemic and the US election had the whole world's attention, and there's some other reasons too, that the timing was what it was. But certainly the US news media didn't help at all, didn't even cover it. It wasn't even on the news.
Do you think they're almost selective in which international wars or whatever?
Absolutely. If they think if they think that they can convince their audience that they're on the good guys' side, oh, you'll hear about it night and day, no matter where in the world it is. But there's a kind of journalism coverage, and I see it mostly on the BBC is how I notice it, and noticed it was kind of funny. Because the BBC does cover Armenia a little bit. The US can get away with not covering it at all. The BBC, they know they have to cover Armenia because they have a reputation of being the real news organization of the world. But the way they cover it is what I call lullaby journalism, where they want to kind of put the audience to sleep and make them think that nothing can be done. So no matter what kind of news story about the war in Armenia, it always begins with 5 paragraphs of basically Wikipedia background information, where they're like, Armenia, a faraway place at the edge of understanding itself, so very far away at the crossroads of East and West. And I'm like, I just want to know what happened in Stepanakert today. But they deliberately have this framing where it's like, Armenia, almost nothing can possibly be done. We can look from afar, but there's very little action that can be taken. And that is the deliberate framing because they don't want their audience globally to think that things can be done to help Armenia. And they also very crucially they know that they can't claim to be that the Turkish and Azerbaijani side is the good guy side. There's not much of a moral argument to make there. So they would rather just put their audience to sleep. It's so far away, who can do anything? And in some way you say, oh, well, at least they're covering it, because on CNN, it's like there's a crawl along the bottom of the screen maybe twice a day or something that's like, a war in Armenia, both sides, who knows? And that's the coverage we get. And then, as the war went on and it concluded, then you started to see the narrative come out of the both sides, both sides, both sides, both sides. And that's kind of a reveal of their poker hand, where initially they're like, oh, it's so far away, it's far away. Or in the US, they're like, Armenia is a place, I guess. And then after, towards the end of the war and after the conclusion, then it all came out where it's like, well, both sides maybe, and it's just bullshit. There's unspeakable crimes against humanity that are committed by Azerbaijan during the war and still now as we speak that are difficult to talk about as human beings. And that does not happen. It's not both sides, it's one side. There's one side that attacked first, there's one side that commits the war crimes, there's one side that has a culture of degradation of human life. And it's really shameful that the Western media covered the war as it did and then largely didn't cover it at all. they could have spared, especially after the election, they could have spared a couple of minutes here and there. Yeah. And they could have had some more reporters on the ground too. Very few, there's some exceptions for sure, mostly independent media and stuff, but very few American journalists on the ground. They have American journalists that are in Istanbul or Baku trying to report on the war here.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Well, James, thank you for the British accent as well.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But, you know, it makes me laugh, so.
And thank you very much for
your time.
It's
an acceptable target. Thank you, Emilio. Thank you for your good work.
And thank you. Too. And thank you for joining us on CivilNet.